I am back with Kelsey Swanson, who just read a very steamy scene from A Most Unsuitable Lover. And there are several interesting things I noticed from that scene. First of all, consent is sexy, and there is a lot of that going on. There was a moment specifically where throughout the whole scene, Ian is struggling with the fact that he's feeling lust. And then he has this sense of something else propriety that he should be following. And then there was a certain moment where his lust kind of became a third entity and it like kind of departed him and was directing himself. Like he was completely disassociated from his lust.
Mhm.
I'm curious how much of that is a theme that you wanted to explore, or did that just kind of show up in this?
It kind of was a bit of, I think, a personification of the belief and the stereotype that Scots were heathens. And he is Scottish. So I play off a lot of the prejudices back then and how he kind of struggles because he's not of the upper class, but he's kind of a gentleman because he's a doctor, but he's a Scottish doctor. So he's respected, but he's kind of dangerous and he's pursued by a lot of the upper class women who want a little taste of danger. So I was kind of playing off of that he really does kind of have this untamedness of inside of him. He's born in the Highlands and he's used to being free and open, and then he kind of had to lock himself away to fit into this societal mold in order to become the renowned physician that he is in London. So I
That's so
kind of played
interesting.
off of that there is this untamed part of him, but it's beautiful and it's not savage in a bad way. It's savage in a good way.
Right. And how did you go about discovering those stereotypes and then, finding ways to break through them? Like, what was your research process like?
So, like you mentioned, my degrees are in English and history. I focused a lot on European history and British history. The history between Scotland and England is very interesting. The wars, the clan wars, the division inside Scotland with England, and then amongst themselves, and then the fact that Scotch Gaelic was outlawed and bagpipes were outlawed and their traditions were outlawed. They basically wanted to do everything to quash all things Scottish, and kind of bringing that in, that this perseverant undercurrent and how strong the Scottish people are. I kind of wanted Ian to personify that he's playing the part that the English want him to, but he still speaks Scotch Gaelic. He teaches Juliet that language because she's fascinated with languages and it's not something that she's ever heard before. And he opens her eyes to the beauty of Scotland and things like that. So I wanted to kind of bring that history that I had read about as much as I could and kind of not water it down, but make it into more concise points and form them into Ian, who is a personification of that perseverance. So,
Yeah, that's really interesting. I often think about Ireland and Scotland being kind of proving grounds where the British figured out how to other and subjugate the
mm-hmm,
other. And I think in fiction, it is helpful for us to revisit that because there are so many experiences of people being othered and people doing the othering that continue. It's throughout history and it continues today.
mm-hmm.
And having that as an entry point allows us to have a lot more empathy and kind of understand how it works.
Yes, absolutely. I absolutely agree. I wanted them to feel, like you said, the empathy that these are still people, even though they're othered. He still has desires. He still has traditions, even though it's dangerous to hold them. They're still there, and I think that that's the power of the soul and the will that I find fascinating.
Yeah. The other thing about that scene that stuck out to me is how character driven it is. It's very much about Ian's struggle with himself about what he wants to do. Do you get hooked into your stories? Like, what comes first? The characters, the plot, dialogue, trope, scenes?
Uh, Definitely characters and plot go hand in hand. I have been told many times I'm very character driven. I like to play around with tropes and twist them a little bit. Like my first book, it's a brother's best friend love story, but it's they've always loved each other. They just have never said anything. So it's not quite, like, oh, he's pining and she just doesn't see him, or vice versa. I kind of twist them a little bit. I like damaged characters, so I like building plots off of characters who have complicated histories and backstories, and then it just kind of explodes from there. I have journals full of books. I think I have about 40 books plotted out.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah, it's been over a few years. It's not like I did this in a week. But it's I come up with these characters, and then very closely I formulate the plot given their particular backstories. So like I said, I love damaged characters, so more damage the better. And I think they make great plots, and then they just I just let it happen. I guess the stories just kind
Yeah.
of happen.